Hi, I'm Carl Gearhart from the Giant Country Horns. This podcast is In the Loop, the Legion of Osiris podcasts. Osiris is creating a community that connects people like you with podcasts and live experiences about artists and topics you love. Check out osirispod.com, stay in the loop, and sign up for the newsletter to learn about the newest podcasts and events. Relics Magazine is a media partner of Osiris. For music news, go to relics.com.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to GuitarCast. This is your host, Andy Keithley. Welcome back. It's been a while. It's been a little over a month, I think, since the last GuitarCast. But we are back today with a double feature. Two separate interviews with two of my old friends, both engineers. Got Nelson Lugo, who I worked with at the Village Recorder here in Los Angeles many years ago. And Tewell, who is a great live sound engineer who I've worked with many times. GuitarCast is a member of the Osiris Podcast Network. Osiris is a community of podcasts, music and comedy and culture. A bunch of great podcasts. Find out more at osirispod.com. Sign up for the newsletter and stay up to date with all the giveaways and events and new podcasts coming out all the time from Osiris. Don't forget to follow GuitarCast on Twitter and Instagram at GuitarCastPod. Follow Osiris on Twitter at OsirisPod. And take a minute to leave a rating and a review on your podcast app for GuitarCast. And there's always more GuitarCast at guitarcast.net. Thanks a lot for listening. First up is my interview with audio engineer Nelson Lugo. I should probably introduce you officially here.
Oh, yeah.
Nelson Lugo.
Hello.
Nelson, so good to see you again.
Good to see you.
It's been, what do we say?
At least 7 years. 2011.
Wow.
2012.
Yeah. And we were part of the same class of runners at the Village Recorder here in Los Angeles.
Yeah. A lot of endless nights.
A lot of overnight, the Village is like this old haunted mansion of a recording studio.
Yes.
It's an old Masonic temple built in the 20s, and sometime in the 60s it began to slowly become this recording studio and has been that way ever since. And that's like the ultra condensed history of the Village. It's obviously got a lot more going on there than that. But when we started there, I think I started there in 2008. So I might have been a little before you.
Yeah, like a few months, because I was also in 2008. I think it was October.
So yeah, I started in May.
Yeah.
So we must have been in the same class at Berkeley.
Yeah.
But I didn't meet you at Berkeley.
No, we met out here.
Yeah. I find that's the case with a lot of people that I know. It's like we were there at the same time, but didn't really know each other. But I also was I was not in MP&E.
Oh, you were like performance or
I was
songwriting?
CWP. So,
CWP.
Yeah. I was doing more like composition and sequencing, and we never touched a console. But you were in MP&E, music production engineering, and so it made sense for you to work at the Village. A lot of the staff there at the Villages came out of the MP&E program. Yeah. But yeah, we were both also new to LA.
Yeah,
And so I remember just having that in common, like figuring out the city and where things were and kind of
like what to do with our free time
out.
and like
we were both like painfully single at that point. Just
that's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah, just like sitting around wondering how do we get these girls to talk to us, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, it was because we never left the village, basically. If you're a runner there, especially if you're a new runner there, you are pretty much on call. If you're not there, then you're on call. And
right.
you have a day off, they call you in.
Exactly.
And
you can't say no because then you're not a team player.
Right,
then, you know?
right. You can never say no. And they say, oh, we need someone to come in until midnight. And then the session would go until 6 a.m.
Yep.
It's just a crazy, wild place to work, and all this A-list clientele, and all of our clients were working on big projects, big albums and movies and stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah. So, tell me about because you moved
in 2014. Well, I left the village in October of 2011, and then afterwards I did a little bit of freelancing. I was doing like live sound at a club in Beverly Hills, and then I did a little bit of freelance at Glenwood Place in Burbank.
Mm-hmm.
And then on January, I started working at Premiere Networks, and pretty much like monitoring audio QC, streaming of a bunch of different radio shows that are distributed nationwide across the U.S. And I did that pretty much until I left LA. So from 2012 to like August of 2014.
Yeah. So you're a trained engineer who found work in your field, more or less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was interesting because it was all like more like audio QC. So you want to make sure that the audio levels were always clean. Nothing was distorting. Yeah. And if there was a problem with a satellite, like you would switch uplinks to make sure that there was no dead air and transmission was clean. So it was a different, interesting change of pace.
Yeah. Before you got into engineering, you're a guitar player, right?
Oh yeah, that's what got me into the music world. That's what got me into the U.S. technically. I mean, I'm Puerto Rican,
right,
born and raised, so we are U.S. citizens. So my dream was always to be like the man behind the glass, moving the faders and recording and making albums. That was what got us here.
What age did you start playing guitar?
I was 10.
Mm-hmm.
I was 10.
It's about when I started to get serious about it too.
I actually wanted to be a drummer, but my cousin started playing the drums. I was like, oh man, well I guess we're gonna need a guitar player,
can't have two drums,
right? So, and then I was watching VH1. Remember those iconic music channels?
Yeah.
And there was like a November Rain, and then Slash is doing the solo on top of the piano. I was like, I want to be able to do that.
That video is like probably one of the, because it was right in the peak of music videos when they were popular in general.
Exactly.
Now nobody cares about music videos, but
right.
That was when there was like 12 music videos in rotation on VH1 and MTV. And anytime November Rain came on, it was like a 5.5 minute video, and it was like, everybody shut up, And there's no DVR, so it's like we gotta watch it.
Here comes the solo.
And Slash makes the guitar look really cool.
Yeah. So that was a no-brainer then, As soon as I saw Slash on top of the piano, like, I want to be able to do that,
Yeah.
So that's what got me into playing guitar, pretty much.
Cool. And so you were a guitar principal at Berkeley in MP&E.
Yeah.
So you only took what, 1 or 2 semesters of like private lesson and ensemble, or 2 years?
Yeah.
Okay, so 4 semesters.
4 semesters. So levels 1 through 4, something like that.
Yeah. Do you remember who you studied with, or like, were you doing jazz? Were you doing?
No, I was mostly one of the more like into the rock, the rock type of thing. Yeah.
Cool. Dream Theater was always a big popular one.
John Finn, but I also started with like Scott Tarulli, Bruce Bartlett, because I wanted to get more into a different style, more of fusion type of approach into guitar soloing.
Yeah. So do you still play?
Yes, not as often as I would like to, but I try to play at least 30 minutes here and there just for fun.
Yeah, I was thinking about this, it's pretty common for like guys like my parents' age, my dad included, and a lot of his peers, they all got back into music after a career in something else and raising a family and basically stepping away for 30 years. And now they're all a bunch of these old guys who are playing in bands.
Get together and jam
and
out.
it's like the best thing ever, right? And I always wondered, like, is that gonna be me? Am I gonna be like pumped up to, for the one band practice every 3 months with all my buddies when I'm like 65, And for a long time, I was playing professionally, and I was like, it's no question, that's what I do for a living. And for the last 2 years, working at the Ray Charles Foundation, I'm not making my living playing guitar, and it's becoming more and more like this thing I look forward to whenever I get a chance to play with someone.
Right.
I play on my own from time to time, but certainly not the kind of hours that I was putting in years ago.
And I don't even play as... My peak was early 20s as a guitar player, I would say, definitely. Like, my chops are nowhere near what they used to be at all.
What kind of guitar do you have?
Currently, I'm playing a GNL ASAT Special. It's got those MFD. That's kind of like not a single coil, but not a humbucker.
Yeah.
So that's my color baby blue. It's like a sonic blue color.
Cool.
So that's my main guitar.
Nice. What about amps? Do you have a...
Yeah, so I actually bought a kit, and I hand wired with a friend of my friend in Wisconsin. His name is Chris Middlestead. He's a guitar luthier. And he's like, Nelson, you need to build an amp. And I'm like, there's no way I can do this, dude. I can record, I can play. I am not a mechanical person. Like, no, you can't do this. So he convinced me somehow. And I bought a kit, and I hand wired Fender Deluxe, a Tweed Deluxe amp.
So how much did the kit cost?
I can't remember if it was it was something between 500 to 750.
Okay. So, okay. And what was it like putting it together?
Basically, you have like all the resistors, all the capacitors, all the tubes in like a little box, and then you have this diagram, and then you start pretty much hand wiring, soldering,
it's like
everything
building
together.
A model car.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I did that over a weekend. I started on a Friday night, and I finished Sunday afternoon.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And that's pretty much what I've been playing, like my Tweed and my GNL.
Cool, man. So, and you moved. Tell me about where you moved to, and what you do there now.
Oh, sure. So I've been living in Wisconsin since August of 2014. So I moved out there, and I've been working with a company called Sound Devices, which they're mostly known for like TV film production recorders. Like our recorders are using like Star Wars, La La Land, Game of Thrones, all those awesome scenes were recorded on Sound Devices gear.
Cool. Yeah. That's cool. And do you miss LA?
It's bittersweet for me, to be bluntly honest. It's a yes and no. For example, I miss my friends because a lot of my good, close friends are out here. I miss the food, the cultural diversity.
Yeah.
And, well, I'm originally from the Caribbean, so I miss surfing. I miss the beach.
So you're up in the pretty cold part of the country.
Yeah, I'm in a town that probably nobody knows. It's called Baraboo. Yeah, Baraboo.
Sounds cold already, yeah.
It's 50 minutes north of the capital in Madison. So a very small town. Like, to give you an idea how small it is, you want to guess population in that town that I'm living?
10,000.
12.
Okay. Yeah, man. So is there any kind of music scene there that you've tapped into?
Actually, in Madison, there is.
I figured most big college towns like that have a lot of creativity, a lot of bands.
So, for example, a couple of weeks ago, before I came out here, I went to see Death Cab for Cutie. They were playing at the Sylvie, which is a new venue. And then in a couple of weeks, I'm going to see a band called AJR. You know AJR?
No.
They have a couple, more like alt rock. And yeah, and then I bought tickets to see Young the Giant. I think they're coming down there in February, I believe. So there's a couple of bands I'm more like into alt rock nowadays.
Yeah.
So now that I have my nights free again.
Yeah.
So I try to see a lot of live shows as often as I can.
You're in town this week for a couple of presentations for your company.
Yeah, so we're actually at the Village this last Tuesday.
What was it like going back to the Village to work?
It was actually fun. It was cool, a lot of memories, a lot of crazy memories, but it was actually nice to...
Did you run into Jeff?
No, actually he wasn't there, but I saw Tina.
Yeah.
We talked for a while, gave her a big hug. I saw Alex.
Yeah, he's still there.
So it was cool, and it was interesting being on the other side, being a customer.
Yeah.
Because our assistant, Branko, he was awesome. Like, I got there, everything was pretty much set up. I was like, what?
Yeah.
It's like everything was there. All I had to do, literally just take the computer, because I had a little PowerPoint presentation, take the portable recorder, plug in like 2 cables, and I was good to go. Like, literally.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it was always set up. I just, as a runner, maybe it's just that we see it more, but it always seemed like every session was like
struggling to find something.
Yeah. Some major malfunction with every session that we would all scramble to figure out.
We need more headphones, or we need this.
But we were seeing that where the client would walk in and look.
Everything was good to go.
So maybe it's just a perspective thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. So what was your presentation like?
It was awesome. It was called Studio Quality Music, Anytime, Anywhere. And it's basically this idea of promoting like DAW-less recording, because, as soon as you open up Pro Tools or whatever DAW you're using, not to knock on DAWs or anything like that, because they're awesome and a necessity. Yeah. But sometimes when you want to be creative, you don't want to be focusing on waveforms or focusing on what plugin, what EQ, what compression. Sometimes you just want to plug it, play, lay down your musical ideas without being bothered by the technicalities of it. So that was what the presentation was about.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough that I got some really nice world-class musicians to come play with us. We had Gordon Campbell on drums, and also Oscar Cartaya on bass. He's done a lot of work with like Robbie Robertson.
Oh, cool.
So,
yeah.
So
At the Village, I presume.
Yeah, exactly. And Wojan Brothers too. Remember the Wojan Brothers?
The Wojans.
Yeah. So it was just a fun time. Thank you for having me, man. This is awesome.
Nelson, so good to see you, man.
You too.
Hit me up anytime you come back to LA.
Definitely.
And next time I'm in Madison, Wisconsin, I'll look you up.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Andy.
Talk to you later, man.
Thanks. Cheers.
So that was my buddy Nelson. Haven't seen him in years. Great to sit down and talk with him. Next up is Tewell. Tewell is an all-around great guy and a really talented engineer, live sound tech. Here comes Tewell.
Wow, I miss this place. We did lots of recordings here.
We did.
That. Like we just set stuff up, and we walk out of our rooms and go, "Oh, let's record some stuff." You guys be jamming, I'll be like, "Quit the jamming, let me get the recorder out."
Yeah. So, welcome to the show, Tewell.
Yeah.
Mr. Tewell.
Yeah.
And what's your last name?
Gewargis.
Gewargis.
Yeah.
And Tewell, you're one of the best, most dedicated live sound engineers I've ever met.
Thank you, man.
And I love that. My background being an engineer, I really have a lot of respect for an engineer who is there and committed to the sound all the way through a show as if you're a part of the band.
Yeah.
A band member doesn't have the luxury of like sitting out for a set or, taking a break. And the sound guy, engineer really shouldn't either.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always been of that school of thought as well. If you're doing a gig, you're doing the gig. You're not doing the first 5 minutes and the last 5 minutes. And the band musicians take solos. Musicians there's dynamics. and if there's dynamics, you've got to be on top of that.
Yeah.
So thanks, man. Appreciate that compliment.
Yeah. I mean, I've not met too many engineers who are kind of like, specialized in live sound. I mean, you obviously know your way around a recording studio too, but that's how we met. So it's probably like 4 or 5 years ago by now.
Yeah, it's almost probably like 4.5. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much right there.
And did you email us?
I did. I moved to the US in the end of 2013
From Australia.
and I didn't know anybody or anything. I had no contacts, and I was just like, well, what do I do? So I jumped online to all the venue websites around town, like in LA, and I just went through the calendars, like what was upcoming gigs and this and that, and all the local bands, I just emailed. Just emailed all of them, saying, I'm a sound guy from Australia. I'm looking for some gigs, just moved here. And I probably emailed about 100. 10 got back to me. You were one of them.
Yeah.
And of the 10 that got back, I met up with 3. And of the 3 that I met up with, you were the only guys who started throwing me work.
Well, I just remember we were like, this is in the Get Down Boys days, and we were like a busy working band. We had a full calendar. We were playing 4 or 5 times a week.
Yeah.
Regularly for years. We were on a roll, and so we had the work, and I knew, and I think we all kind of knew, over the 7 years that I was in that band, we started off, all of us, as just total amateurs, as players, as performers, and we slowly learned how to act on stage, how to play better, how to present ourselves, how to dress on stage, and then we started upgrading our gear slowly.
Yeah.
And it was this very gradual like learning how to really be a professional band and all the subtleties and the nuance that comes along with that.
Yeah.
And when I got an email from you saying, "Hey, I'm a live sound engineer and I'm looking for some work," I thought, man, that's just absolutely that's what we need.
Yeah.
Our gear has been getting better. We've been getting better. Our overall show is becoming more polished. Wouldn't it just be perfect if we had somebody who is on the board, riding the faders, really making us sound good.
Yeah.
Allowing us to sound good. You know what I mean? Because if we don't sound, if the sound isn't getting out to the audience, it doesn't matter what we play or how we play.
Exactly.
So I thought that was absolutely perfect timing, and you were basically part of the band. I mean, you were coming to every gig with us.
Yeah, I remember that. That was good.
And it was, I've played in a lot of bands, and none of them, other than the Get Down Boys, have had like a dedicated sound guy who was basically part of the group.
Yeah. I actually remember my first gig with you guys. It was that venue on it was at Ocean Boulevard? No, kind of by Santa Monica way. It was a restaurant gig, and you guys said to me before I did my first ever gig, you guys, we've got this venue and it's just a horrible sound. We can never get it to sound good. And I think you guys used that as my trial gig. And
I wonder which one
I can't remember. It was it had a little outdoor area, and then to the right of that was where you guys played. Then it had the bar behind. It was one of those fancy sounding names in restaurants.
Huh.
I can't remember, but anyway, yeah, it was
I'll think about it in like an hour. It'll come to me.
It was all glass walls and really reflective, and it was just not ideal.
And we were there was a long time where we thought we wanted to use single mic, a condenser mic, because that was legit and that's how bluegrass was.
Yeah.
And not really realizing that the venues we were playing.
Yeah, weren't ideal.
No, you can't put up a single condenser mic and expect it to sound very good. We're not in a theater,
Yeah,
we're
exactly.
not in like a listening room or a concert hall where you can pull that off.
Yeah. Out of the challenges. But back on to what you said about the gradual kind of morphing or shifting from amateurs to professionals. It was awesome because I got to see that as well. I mean, you guys had already been playing for a few years before I come along, but I saw you go from like just people who were just doing a gig to people who were doing many gigs and doing them professionally from start to end. Like, all right, we've got to go this time, that time, get there, set up, check, and then do the gig.
We always had house music picked out, so like specialized for each gig, house music. That's another one of those little things, you know.
Yeah.
So many little things people don't really realize is happening in a concert experience. And it's all this behind the scenes stuff that you wouldn't even think about, like pushing a fader on somebody's solo. If you do it right, nobody notices.
Yeah.
But what they do notice is that the solo came through nice and clear.
Yeah.
And that's something that you don't see from the audience.
Yeah.
Just like house music. Having house music, it's this subtle thing that people don't even realize when they're just chatting and the band's about to start and there's just music in the background. If there was no house music, it would be extremely awkward, super quiet. People would be like, "What is taking so long? Why am I so anxious?"
Yeah,
it's one of those little things. But yeah, we having you and having somebody there who is kind of part of the team but not on stage, didn't have to worry about being on stage. It was great because if we're at a wedding and there was some kind of miscommunication, which there is at every single wedding we've ever played.
Yeah.
We'd say, "Hey, Tewell, go figure out what time we're supposed to start the blah blah blah."
Yeah.
It's just great having because you were essentially like our manager, our sound tech, our roadie.
That's the sound guy's gig, man. We're everything from the sound guy to the tour manager to the security to the psychologist.
We're
everything.
Really, you're like this neutral member of the band that
we're Switzerland.
You really are. I mean, politically, you're just neutral completely. So tell me about Australia. Before you got here, you told me this at one point, but tell me where you're from and what it's like there.
Yeah, I'm from Melbourne, so the southeast of Australia. Born and raised, up until 29, then I moved to the States. But I never, as a kid, I was always into music, but I wasn't surrounded by people with music, family or friends. So I never learned to play an instrument or any of that stuff. I think that's why I do audio now, because you know, I started playing guitar in my when I got a bit older, but then I turned went to college, university or college, studied economics. And I hated it, man. I know as soon as I finished that, I got a job in a warehouse. I thought, I'm not doing this. I got to go back and study audio. And so I went and studied audio, did it for a year. And I cut my teeth in the pub scene in Melbourne. And because that's where it's at in Melbourne there, mostly in Australia. It's the rock and roll pub scene. Mm-hmm. And that's where you cut your teeth. You go in there to those venues, and it smells like alcohol. Mm-hmm. The microphones stink like vomit and alcohol. They've been battered and beaten. They're broken. And you're just you're rolling cables that are just sticky because of all the booze that's been spilt on it. Yeah. But that's where you learn your chops.
Yeah, absolutely. Because same as being a player, that's where you learn.
Yeah, because but that's what it's like there, and it's pretty much a smaller America. That's the best way to describe it. It's just a smaller America. It's a very similar vibe in terms of the music scene, in terms of nightlife and that kind of stuff. So if you think, probably it's smaller and safer. But that's pretty much it. But that was good fun. I remember doing gigs. I'd carry a few bits of gear with me, like a little compressor and some cables and mics, and I'd go into the venues and kind of patch into their system. And this was pre-prevalence of digital consoles. Yeah. So there were a couple around, but they were rare because they were worth like 50, 60K at the time. Right. Now you can get them for like $700.
Yeah. So you were there in Australia doing sound for rock club or bars and pubs and then didn't you follow, or you went on tour with a group?
Yeah, I went on tour with
was that like your first big
that was my first job like yeah. So when I studied the audio, I did it for a year, and my teachers said they didn't say specifically to me, but they said it to the class, like, if you're getting work, you shouldn't be here. And I was just starting to get work at that time, live gigs. So I did the first year and then I dropped out. I didn't finish off the second or third year. It was the best decision I made because I got a few pub gigs. People would throw my name around. So people would call me, hey, I got your number from this guy. We've got a gig Friday. You want to do it? Cool. I did this one gig for this kind of R&B, rock and roll-y band. And then about a month later, they called me and said, hey, we're going to Europe for 3 weeks. We need someone to do sound and just general tour managing stuff. Like we mentioned before, the sound guy is everything. And he does everything. He's not everything. But and so I said, sure. Knowing that I was going to lose money because I had to pay for my own airfares and that kind of stuff. It was a low budget thing. And so I did. We went to Germany for 2.5 weeks, and we went to Spain for about just under a week. We only did 2 shows in Spain, and that was it was rough, but it was awesome.
Yeah,
that was my first thing, and then and that was 6 months in to me being a quote unquote live sound guy.
Yeah.
So I was just new, and I was on tour in Europe. I was just like, if this is the path I'm going down. Although I remember in Germany, I actually did have one of my worst gigs. Not worst gigs, but weirdest gigs ever. It was this big warehouse, and the ceiling, one of those really high ceiling warehouses. And the band, and I get in there, and I go to the in-house guy. I'm like, oh, where's the console? And he turns around to point to the back of the venue, right up in the top right-hand corner of the venue. Literally the top right-hand corner, up a huge flight of stairs. And I just went, oh, you're going to be kidding me, right? So I get up there. I'm like, oh, gig's got to be done. So I get up there. Band starts playing. All I hear is bass.
Yeah.
It's all I can hear from up there. I'm like, I'm going to have a workout tonight. Run downstairs, listen, think, I got to change this. Run upstairs, make the change, go back down, realize it's not right, run back up, and all night. Yeah, that was fun.
So what's your gig nowadays? What do you...
Well, I'm still doing some local gigs. I just finished up recently with the Hillbenders. I did about 6 months with those guys.
Friends of the podcast.
Yeah.
Had Mark on here, and
yeah, Mark. That we because he lives local as well, and so we would fly out together to all the gigs, and that was cool. That was a really fun tour for 6 months there, and I actually remember I had one of my best sounding gigs with those guys. I don't remember where. I think it was in the Midwest somewhere. I don't remember the venue or even the state we were in because we were flying around so much. But I just remember that from right in the beginning, I just went, this is awesome. It sounds phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And everyone's into it. And right at the end, because most people have to walk past you to get out of the venue at the end of the gig. Everyone was like, thumbs up. That was awesome. That was great. It's a great feeling to get there, especially when you're the person who's supposed to go unrecognized.
Right.
So when somebody does recognize it, you kind of like, for the right reasons, because usually if they're recognizing it, it's for the wrong reasons because it sounds bad. But when they're recognizing it because they don't recognize it, because they don't realize, it's a live band because it sounds so good, it's the best compliment you can get as a sound guy.
Yeah. Yeah, so would you say that that's like your, I don't know if policy is the right word, but your goal when you're mixing a show is to make it sound blended and natural so that it doesn't sound like it's live almost. It sounds like it's...
Yeah, absolutely. I like to, I'm probably going to get a little technical. Most people who listen to you will know anyway. But what I like to do is I don't like the harshness of a sound like that piercing high mids, because the human ears we naturally hear high mids and high mids more than other frequencies. So I like to notch out a little bit of those kind of like 2 to 3K in the PA. And then I like to compress the front of house. and raise it up. So you get the adrenaline of the sound pressure, like the actual physical adrenaline pushing into you without the harshness on your ears. And that's what I always try to accomplish in a room, because that gives it that feeling of almost a kind of like recording like quality, because you can crank up a recording and it's never harsh on your ears. It's loud, but it's never really harsh. And so that's always what I try to accomplish in a room. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, just depends on the room. But yeah, I do like to blend it in. And on the graphic EQs, you'll usually see on mine a bit of those mids, upper mids, kind of notched down a few dB.
Interesting. Tell me more about the China trip.
So I worked with. I met Dust Bowl through Daniel Mark, who is a friend of Get Down Boys, and I remember on that same venue we spoke about earlier, with the first gig with you guys.
Okay.
I think he wasn't there for that first gig, but we did that same gig about a month later, and he was there for that, and that's how I met him, and then subsequently the Dust Bowl.
Was it
Ariel
on Main Street,
on Main,
in Santa Monica. Okay, now I know what
Yeah.
you're talking about. Yes, that was a really tricky room.
Yeah.
And we were trying to do a condenser in there for a long time.
Yeah.
And you're right. Yeah, Daniel, I think we played on Daniel's birthday there. I don't know if it was that show or not, but
Yeah.
okay, yeah, I got you. All right.
Yeah, so and then probably about a year later, he'd hit me up and said, "Hey, Dust Bowl just got a tour through Europe for 3 weeks. China for 3 weeks. Do you would you be interested in doing it? They're still talking to other guys, other sound people, and that kind of stuff. But you'd be up in the running because I know you and I know you can do the gig." And I said, "Absolutely." I got the gig, so we went there, and I'd actually never seen. It's kind of funny because I'd never seen the Dust Bowl Revival play live until about 2 days before we went to China on tour, and I was going to be their live sound guy.
Yeah.
They had a gig at Mrs. Fish, is that downtown?
Yeah.
They had a gig there, and I'd never seen them live.
Also a weird room because the stage is right in the middle, and it's
Yeah.
kind of big and open. And weird.
Exactly. So I went there and I thought, yeah, okay, these guys are great. I'm so glad I said yes to this. And we get in a plane, we fly over there, and we'd sent the specs before we went there, but we weren't expecting much because we were told by the person who set up that tour, because he's done it in the past, because it was like a government cultural exchange thing. And we were told, look, don't expect much from a technical perspective. Just do make do with what you can. You're going to hear a lot of people just constantly say yes to you. Mm-hmm. They're just too polite. And the reality is they can't do or won't do what you're asking. They're too polite to just say no. So don't expect everything. I thought that was exaggerated. I thought, no, surely it's just not the case, right? I get there. I'm like, we our first gig, and I'm just, I need this, that, and the other, and they're just nodding, yes, sure. And we had a translator with us, and all that kind of stuff, and I'm like, awesome. 20 minutes later, I still haven't got my stuff. I'm like, I ask again, like, where's, this? I'm asking politely. I'm not being rude. I'm asking politely, and they're like, yes, and I'm like, oh, awesome. 10 minutes later, and still nothing, and that's when I realized, yeah, okay. This is going to be one of those where we're just short on gear everywhere. And we did some really... They're an 8-piece American
there's 8 players in the band.
Yeah, like American Roots Orchestra. And we did this one gig. We had 5 wireless microphones. One wasn't working, so we had 4 wireless microphones. The mixer was in a room about 100 feet behind the stage. And the audience was about 50 feet down because they were elevated. And and there was the stage and the audience were separated by a moat. And I was just, you got to be kidding me, man.
Yeah.
I normally have to have about minimum like 16 channels for these guys, and I've got 4 wireless mics. We got through it though.
Huh. And you said that on that trip, there was like hardly a minute of free time.
Yeah, we had we had some free time. We did, but free time defined as not gigs, yeah, we had a few days. Free time defined as we can sit around and relax, no, because they jam-packed everything with tour guides and this and that, and get up at this time even on your day off, and we're going to go see this, which I'm grateful for now.
Yeah.
Because had they have not done that, we would have all just gone, oh, we're too tired, leave us alone, we don't want to see things. So that was good that they forced us to see things.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, Tewell, thanks for being on the Guitar Cast, man.
Oh, thank you, man. It's a pleasure.
All right, thanks a lot for listening. We'll see you next time on Guitar Cast with Andy Keithley.